Daryl Mangum. I'm part of the Utah Storytelling Guild. The chapter I belong to recently had the wonderful opportunity of sharing stories with a local elementary school. Well, today I want to tell a quick story about my childhood and something that I learned at the age of 12 that changed my life.
So it's so fun to be here, and thanks for having us. Now, how many of you guys have heard of a goblin? You know what goblins are? Can you picture a goblin?
Follow me, and I will teach you. Listen, and you will learn. Can you say it with me? Follow me, and I will teach you. Listen, and you will learn.
Sharing stories at an elementary school is a wonderful experience, but it's pretty standard stuff for our group. There were 3 of us that night from our chapter sharing stories with elementary school students and their families. Now, when I was a kid, I had a very special relationship with my grandfather. Everybody has a different relationship with their grandparents, but my grandparents were my heroes. My grandfather was 6'2", and he looked like a lumberjack. He had really broad shoulders, and he had curly hair. It was red when he was a young man. It was white when he was my grandfather. And I admired everything he did.
The goblin in my story was not really a mean goblin. He wasn't a particularly nice goblin either. And he wasn't a wise goblin, but he wasn't stupid. He was just smart enough to always make sure he was taking care of himself.
But you know, there are many different ways of telling a story. Can someone tell me some other ways of telling stories without talking?
With pictures and action.
With pictures, look right there, and action. What else?
You can just like
Read it from a book, yes. Here.
memorize it and keep it in your head.
There you go. Follow me and I will teach you. Listen and you will learn. Say it with me again. Follow me and I will teach you. Listen and you will learn.
It was literacy night at this elementary school, so we were performing in the evening. There were 3 of us from our chapter sharing stories. There were authors of children's books that were there telling about their books, and there were other dignitaries and people from the community that were sharing stories and their relevant experience, all under the banner of literacy. Well, my grandparents, the summer that I was 12, asked if I would go camping with them. Now, we used to go camping with all of our cousins and uncles and aunts, but my grandparents wanted me to go just with them alone, which really surprised me, but I thought it was very thrilling.
The grocer every night got him a thick slice of bread, spread with rich, creamy butter and delicious sweet jam. Oh, the jam! That was the goblin's favorite part. And in return for this, the goblin didn't play tricks on the grocer and his wife. They never found their salt mixed with their sugar or their shoelaces tied together. So it worked out pretty good for everybody.
I'm going to tell you a story, but I'm not going to say anything. And I want you to listen very closely. And I want you to feel. What story did you hear in that? What did you feel inside? Dancing. What else? What did you feel?
Felt like there was butterflies.
Butterflies, yes.
But that night was extra special. We didn't know it, but the elementary school we were presenting to had formed their own storytelling club. And they now had a guild, an organization at their elementary school, and the kids were enthusiastic about it and were participating and learning to share stories.
And then the fox asked, would you like to go on a stroll? And then the goose said, sure. He got thirsty, so chewing on the book.
Once, long ago, a farmer was working in his garden. "This will make a good dinner," said the farmer. "Stop! Oh, put me down, said the yam. "I don't want to be your dinner. I want to stay in the dirt."
That's the way it went that evening. There were adult storytellers from our group sharing stories, and there were kids from their own group sharing stories with the audience that was gathered that night. And I felt that something amazing, inspirational, and educational was taking place as we taught those kids, through example, about storytelling. And I remember we drove down this dirt road and we got out of the truck, and my grandparents, I knew they had a story in their heart, but they didn't say anything. And there was some logs, looked like it had used to have been a log cabin. And my grandmother said to my grandpa, "Is this it?" And he was kind of quiet. He said, "This is it."
But then the chick said, that is really not a good idea.
The room was cramped and small and pretty cold in the wintertime, and there weren't any windows, so it was dark.
Now, isn't that interesting? I only told one story, but how is it every one of you had something different?
Now everyone knows goats can't talk. Stop, said the man. "Why are you running like that? There's a talking yam in my garden."
At the end of the evening, I knew I was really onto something. I am now preparing a book about storytelling for young people and forming a storytelling club for young people, elementary school age kids, to help them and their teachers know how to go about the process to learn how to tell, how to perform, how to communicate, and how to find an audience. I think that it's going to be a good project to be involved in. I'm working with a wonderful young illustrator named Tyson Cole, and we're coming up with a book that will be fun and very educational and very useful to young people, their families, and their teachers.
And then the fox asked, would you like to go to my nearby kitchen? And the goose said, sure.
And I was thrilled. I jumped on that little motorcycle and I fired it up and I took off like I was on fire. I went as fast as I could make that little motorcycle go, and I was sliding into the turns and I was trying to jump over the little bumps, and I was just riding that little motorcycle as fast as I could. It was one of the most thrilling experiences I had ever had.
Now the goblin could not understand this in the least. This cold, dark, cramped, uncomfortable room with only books for company? Well, thank you very much. The goblin would keep his warm bed under the counter with his thick slice of bread with rich, creamy butter and what on top? The jam. Oh, the jam.
Now, these flutes were very important to the Native American people. Like I said, they believed that the flutes had a special spirit, and that by playing it, the flute player, could touch the heart of those who listened.
Think about storytelling. What do you picture in your head? Is it a matronly lady sitting in a rocking chair with a big picture book talking to very young children? If that's what it is, that's great. That's a very valuable part of storytelling. But it can be so much more. Storytelling is a lost art. People struggle with their interpersonal communication skills, and learning to tell stories to an audience teaches us communication. It teaches us self-confidence. And I feel that this is a valuable tool in the elementary school setting. Until I heard the sound of my grandpa's motorcycle off in the distance. And he came roaring through the trees, and he stopped. He about fell over. He was trying to get off his motorcycle. He pulled his helmet off his head. He almost pulled his head off with it. And he did something that just, to this day, makes me tremble when I think about it. He said, "Where's that doggone kid? That selfish, spoiled, good-for-nothing, little rotten kid." And I was really scared.
And then the goose said, "Sure, I do love soup." And then the chick says, "That is really, really, really not a good idea."
What is that you're wrapping the cheese in? Is it, this? This is a page from an old book of poetry. The woman down the street didn't have enough money to pay for her milk, and she traded me this book of poetry. It's a wonder I even stay in business.
I'm working on putting together curriculum for schools to do exactly that, to form a storytelling guild in their own schools. So it's something you're learning, right? From the story, and you hope other people learn from it. Now, how do you feel about being part of a storytelling guild or a club and sharing stories with other students?
Well, I feel pretty good because I get to share my talent with other people.
Good. So is it fun or hard?
Well, it's kind of fun, but it's also kind of hard.
Because of all the memorizing?
Yeah, but you have to kind of practice your story if you want to.
Yeah.
If you want to master it.
That's right. It takes a lot of practice. Is that what kind of thing you do in your storytelling guild?
Yeah.
Is practice telling stories?
We practice.
Okay. What kind of things would you like to do with stories if you could? Like tonight was a lot of fun, don't you think?
I'd like to make them exciting and
Oh yeah.
have a lot of drama.
Yeah.
And at least tell a little lesson.
Your story was funny. That's a good thing. Funny stories are wonderful. Let me tell you something to give you some advice. Collect your stories. Write them down, put them in a folder someplace where they'll last a long time. So keep your collection. Are you part of the Storytelling Guild?
Yes, me and my little brother.
Okay, tell me what you've liked best about it. Well, first of all, wait a minute. Give me your name.
I'm Maxwell Brown. This is my little brother Benny.
Okay. So what have you liked about stories?
What I really like is just sometimes we would just practice, but sometimes we would play just like a fun game.
All right. We do that in our adult storytelling guild. We have nights where we have games that are fun. What's something great you've learned? You're part of the guild too? What's something you've learned from stories? Not just in the club, but throughout your school career.
I've learned that you can tell as much with words as you can with pictures.
Yeah. Can you sometimes picture in your mind what the story is that happens when somebody's telling a story? Those are my favorite. Do you have a favorite storyteller? I challenge you to investigate and find out some storytellers that you like. There are lots of them out there.
Okay.
Like O. Henry. Okay, thanks very much, and I want to thank you for sharing your stories. It's a big thing, it's a good thing. Takes a lot of work, but you'll love it and you'll never forget it, I promise, okay?
Welcome.